Yo, what's going on, E7 fam? Pat here, back with my challenge level 2 or level 5 clear of a Midsummer Paradise. I was out of town for the last, I'd say, 4 days or so, and I didn't really get a chance to tackle this event. And usually when I'm behind like this, I consult the PvE god himself, Tristan Wolf, for some advice. Although Tristan's strategy didn't work the best for me, so I decided to shift around a couple of pieces and kind of come up with this solution. It is largely the same as his own, but in case you don't have or don't want to play some of the configurations that he has, like for example, he uses Last Rider Crown in the second team. If you have Mort, you can absolutely move Mort to the second team. I'll talk about some alternatives as well with this clear and explain kind of how we got here. So, this fight is probably the worst fight I think they've ever made in this game. The fact that we need a limited character at a certain imprint level just to be able to bypass the mechanics is honestly inexcusable. The only real alternative to Luluca, if you don't have her at a high enough imprint level, is actually Rowana, who you can see that I'm using here in this team. And even if you have Luluca, like I own Ocean Breeze Luluca, right? I don't have her at A imprint, so she's actually just worse than playing Rowana. Unless you have Luluca, I believe, at like A or S imprint, the Rowana is just going to almost always be better. So, because of the fact that you don't have Luluca, Lethe is not going to have her mechanics disabled, so when you hit her, there's a high chance that she counters with an AoE attack, which obviously Rowana's Vigilant Eye preys upon that, so that's why we're playing her. When we look at the other characters on the team, the fact that the Kraken attack kills most non-bruiser things in one hit, and bruisers don't do enough damage in general to not, you know, kill her before we hit the enrage, you kind of have to play really hard-hitting dodge units because they're the only things that have a chance to survive and do enough damage for you to not hit the enrage. So you're going to need either Violet or Remnant Violet. Tristan goes over in his video why Remnant Violet is a bit better because of the soul burns. On top of that, the fact that you can dodge and then counter with Massacre is a big plus versus Violet. The problem here now is that Violet needs to have a balance of high HP and high damage on the actual character, so you need to sacrifice speed, have some level of bulk so that way you can survive the Lethe Kraken attack, and then also still put up respectable damage again because you're racing against, I believe it's a 12 turn enrage timer. For the artifact on Remnant Violet, we're going to end up playing Violet Talisman. You can play any other dodge artifact, but Violet Talisman along with Assassin Kartua, who we're playing, gives us the best chance to reduce RNG in the fight. I know that sounds really counterintuitive, like you're playing a lot of dodge units to reduce RNG, but if you don't dodge, you're not going to have, you're not going to survive the Kraken attack. So therefore, we have to maximize our dodge chance. So if you get good RNG at the start with Violet Talisman and you're playing Assassin Kartua, it gives you almost a 100% chance to dodge with Remnant Violet. And at that point, all you have to do is use Assassin Kartua's S3, which we just used right here, to get a 2-turn defense break. And therefore, when it becomes Violet's turn, or Violet, if you're using him, you can unload all of your skills. Remnant Violet gets to dump all of his souls. Now, you'll notice my Assassin Kartua did die here. That could happen. This is very, very RNG dependent, but if you're on Remnant Violet and you have a surplus of souls, you can potentially come back, which is what I did in my clear run, just by soul burning. Getting a bunch of potential procs off of Lethe's bubble attack, and that'll hopefully help stabilize the actual run. The last character that we haven't talked about is Sinful Angelica. For me, Mort did not really work super well on the first stage. I just wasn't putting up enough damage before I was hitting the enrage because the quality of my gear is honestly not super high overall. So yeah, I decided to just go with Sinful Angelica because if you've ever seen a 200 ER Sinful Angelica on Prophetic Candlestick, certain team compositions in Guild Wars or in World Arena can't kill that. So I decided to go with that because Sinful Angelica just becomes another copy of my Remnant Violet, or if you decide to play Green Violet or whatever damage dealer you're playing, then you can absolutely use her to supplement that. And if you've got good RNG, then yes, you should always have her S3 available, always have immortality up on each of her other turns. So you'll go basically S3, S1, S3, S1, S3, assuming that you have decent RNG. Again, Remnant Violet is probably the best character for this floor. Sinful Angelica will help supplement damage, whereas Mort didn't really do it for me. And then you can play whatever dodge-based DPS you want to play here. Either that's 2 Violets, Remnant Violet solo, or Violet solo, and then, again, Assassin Cartua. If you don't have Assassin Cartua, Alencia kind of could work in the slot. I was having some decent success with her. I did clear the first floor a couple of times with her, but it's really RNG dependent. Like, honestly, this whole thing is a crapshoot, and I really do hope that they don't do anything like this again in the future. Looking at my second team, honestly, the only thing that really matters here is the Seaside Bellona and the Rowana. The Lone Crescent Bellona, if you have her, is really, really good. It's probably the best DPS you could play here. But, again, you could play any other thing that you want here. As long as SSB is on Bloodstone and she has a good chance to defense break on her S2, you have a shot. I decided to move Mort here, not for the damage, but because his defense break ignores effect resistance, and once we have Enrage up and he's on Elbrus Ritual Sword, he basically gives me extra chances at that SSB defense break, because again, we're trying to do a lot of damage. If you have double Bellona, damage is not the problem. The problem becomes having the defense break. And Tristan's team that he talked about in his video was double Bellona, Last Rider Crow. I could not consistently defense break Lethe with that team, so I decided, you know what, I'm just going to move the best part of Tristan's team, which was the almost guaranteed defense break from Mort, and move it to the second team. And that worked out a lot better for me. Your mileage may vary. Again, you could play like Alencia here, as long as it's some kind of tanky damage dealer that can help with the defense breaking. The 2 Bellonas should just very easily take over this fight. You'll notice though, when you have 2 Bellonas and an Elbrus Ritual Sword user on this team, this fight really does give the whole play the animation thing, that meme, a new take, because there's a stretch of footage somewhere in here, it'll probably be coming up soon, where essentially I don't actually touch any inputs for like a solid 60 seconds or so, it feels like, where we're just countering, everybody's countering, counters on counters. No one really does anything here. It's just animation after animation after animation. And again, Tristan is right. I'm kind of sick of Lethe's animations, and I've only been at this for about like an hour and a half or so at this point, and I'm already sick of looking at it, which is something I don't think I would have said when this character was revealed, because the character is pretty easy on the eyes, but at the same time, again, this event just makes me hate this character with every fiber of my being. Again, I don't really know what they were thinking when they decided that you needed an A imprint of a limited character in order to really do this event. If you're watching this video and, you know, looking to give this team a try and it doesn't work out for you, my heart does go out to you. This was insanely difficult for me. I know I've only been on at it for, like I said, like an hour and a half, but this ranks up there with the last Advent that we ever did as probably the most difficult PvE content like ever. Like, there's not really any wiggle room. You need good gear, specific limited, specific ML 5 stars, Rowana in particular, specific artifacts at certain thresholds. Like, that's a lot to ask from the average player in Epic 7. So if you can't do this clear, again, my heart goes out to you. I don't really know if there's any other, like, you know, clears that we could do. Unfortunately, they only let us, as far as I'm aware, play this level one time. It's a 0 out of 1 for me. I don't think I can actually go back and enter it. So I can't really try alternative solutions for this besides the one that you see here. Hopefully, in another week and a half, when we get part 2 of this event, where we're probably going to need Lethe, hopefully you don't need imprints. I think asking your audience to have a copy of the limited character that is on the banner is fine. I think asking them to have multiples is not really acceptable. In other gacha games, specifically like Nike, Goddess of Victory, it's a little bit easier and understandable because like the rates there for the 5-star are like 5% almost. So it's a bit easier. I think if they had given everyone a free copy of Luluca to start, maybe it would have been a little bit easier. Like, maybe if you only needed B imprint and you got one free to start, sure. Or, like, there was one in the reputation shop that we could farm, or we could farm, like, 2 slates, you know, in this event. Sure. But as it's structured now, no way, no how would I want to play through this again. So, I hope, I know that the community managers have been really on top of this in terms of their response. And yeah, I hope that they can convince the powers that be that, you know, at least, I don't want to speak for the entire player base, but, you know, myself and several others I've talked to are really not happy with the current state of this event. And if you guys are not happy with the state of the event as it is, I encourage you to make your voices heard any way you know possible. Just be, again, respectful and polite about it. It's again, it's a really, really rough scenario, I feel like. I don't really think that we should be having events where the only real way to win is pay or exploit the RNG mechanic, because you could still fail this event with the team that I'm showing you right here if for some reason the CPU just decides to not counter. I've had runs where I've landed like 6-7 attacks in a row and it never uses the bubble counter, and I never get any value out of my Rowana, and I just lose immediately. Yeah, again, very frustrated overall over the whole scenario, as I'm sure many of you are. But hopefully this video will give you some, you know, another alternative solution to actually clear this, even if it is pretty much like 80% the same as Tristan's solutions and so other solutions that I've seen around the web. It's just a different, essentially, configuration of the pieces that are already on the board that people have already figured out are pretty good at this event. So there you go. You see there's my Ocean Breeze Luluca stamp, and unsurprisingly, Rowana is the MVP because she's the only character you can assign to the back row besides Ocean Breeze Luluca to have a shot. So let's take a look at what gear I used. Rowana, it's pretty much my PvP Rowana. Shamadra Staff is pretty much mandatory. You just won't heal enough to actually survive without it. Here's Sinful Angelica. It's got to be somewhat tanky to survive the Kraken Splash and on Prophetic Candlestick so she could keep up Immortality full time. Here's my Remnant Violet on Violet Talisman. He's got more bulk than I would normally play him in PvP, so that way he doesn't actually die, less speed. Try and find Assassin Kartua. He's right here. I just made this recently for PvP. It's not done. You can see EE number 2 here. High effectiveness so he can land his defense breaks. There's more, right? There we go. Alright, so more, nothing special. It's just some random counter and hit gear I have laying around. Stats don't matter aside from the high effectiveness and the Elbrus Ritual Sword and good bulk. He does not there to do damage. Remember, he's there to help our SSB defense break. My spare SSB on Bloodstone with an okay amount of bulk and 85 effectiveness. And then finally, my standard RTA, Lone Crescent Bologna. Again, hopefully this helps. Let me know if there's anything else I can do to make this easier for you. See ya.